The cook saw her childhood photo in a frame in the Millionaire'S mansion and froze. Rain pummeled the windows of Ashford Manor as Rachel Monroe clutched her umbrella, staring up at the imposing structure. Lightning illuminated the Gothic peaks and shadowed eaves, making the mansion seem alive against the stormy afternoon sky. She swallowed hard, smoothing down her simple black dress with her free hand, before hurrying up the steps. "Just a cooking job," she whispered to herself. "Just another kitchen." But this wasn't just another kitchen, and Rachel knew it. Ashford Manor was legendary in these parts, the crown jewel of Leonard Ashford's real estate empire and his personal residence. The advertisement had called for an experienced private chef, and Rachel's culinary school credentials and 5 years at the Westlake Hotel had somehow landed her an interview. Now, 2 weeks later, she was reporting for her first day. The massive oak door swung open before she could knock. An older woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun stood in the entryway, her posture perfect, her black dress crisp. "Ms. Monroe, I presume? You're right on time. I'm Mrs. Palmer, the head housekeeper." "Yes, ma'am, thank you for—" "Save your thanks until you've met Mr. Ashford," Mrs. Palmer interrupted, her expression unreadable. "He can be particular. Follow me." Rachel followed the woman through a maze of hallways, each more opulent than the last. Persian rugs silenced their footsteps as they passed oil paintings in gilded frames, antique vases on marble pedestals, and furniture that belonged in museums. "The kitchen is through here," Mrs. Palmer said, pushing open a swinging door. "You'll find everything stocked as requested, Mr. Ashford takes his morning coffee at precisely 7:30. Black with 1 sugar cube. Never granulated. The tray is already prepared. You need only brew the coffee and bring it to the main study." Rachel nodded, taking in the gleaming professional kitchen. A chef's dream with copper pots hanging from a rack, a 6-burner gas range, and countertops of polished granite. "I'll show you to the study now, so you won't get lost tomorrow." They walked through more hallways until Mrs. Palmer stopped before a pair of double doors. "This is the main study. Remember the route." The housekeeper turned and left Rachel standing alone, the silver coffee service sitting empty on a sideboard near the kitchen. Rachel exhaled slowly, then got to work brewing the perfect cup of coffee. 20 minutes later, her hands trembled slightly as she balanced the coffee tray. Navigating the corridors to the study, the porcelain cup rattled against its saucer with each careful step. "Don't spill, don't trip, don't make a fool of yourself on day 1, she muttered under her breath. Rachel nudged the study door open with her hip and stepped inside. The room was empty. Morning light filtered through tall windows, illuminating walls lined with leather-bound books. A massive desk dominated one end of the room, its surface meticulously organized. And then she saw it. The painting hung beside the fireplace, a portrait of a little girl, perhaps 5 years old, with golden brown curls and a white dress. She stood in a field of sunflowers, one bloom clutched in her tiny hand, her smile radiating innocence and joy. Rachel froze. The coffee tray slipped from her fingers, crashing to the floor with a deafening clatter. Porcelain shattered. Dark liquid splashed across the Persian rug. But Rachel couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't tear her eyes from the painting. That little girl was her. "What the hell is going on in here?" a deep voice demanded. Rachel turned to see a tall man with silver-streaked dark hair standing in the doorway. Leonard Ashford's photographs didn't do him justice. At 54, he carried himself with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to power. His tailored suit couldn't hide the athletic build beneath, and his piercing blue eyes now fixed on Rachel with displeasure. I'm sorry, sir," she stammered, dropping to her knees to clean up the mess. "The coffee. I'll make another pot immediately." But Leonard wasn't looking at the spill. He was watching Rachel's face, his expression shifting from annoyance to something more complex. "Why did you drop the tray?" he asked, his voice suddenly quiet. Rachel's eyes darted back to the painting. "That child," she whispered. "That little girl in the sunflower field. It's me." Leonard's face drained of color. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, standing before the painting. "That's impossible. This is my daughter, Amelia. She died 24 years ago in a fire, along with my wife." Rachel shook her head, her vision blurring with unexpected tears. "I don't understand. That white dress, the sunflower. It's exactly how I remember." She stopped herself. "Remember what?" Leonard demanded. his voice sharp. Nothing. Just dreams I've had. I was raised in an orphanage from age 6. No memories before that. Just fragments. Nightmares about smoke, a woman's voice. Leonard stepped closer, studying her face with unsettling intensity. Your eyes, he murmured. The birthmark by your eyebrow. The scar on your forearm. The door opened again, and a man in his 50s entered, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile warm and practiced. Leonard, I've been looking for you. We need to discuss the Richardson property before... He stopped, taking in the scene. What happened here? Victor, Leonard said, his voice distant. This is Rachel Monroe, the new chef. Victor Langley's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened as they moved between Rachel and the painting. I see there's been an accident. Shall I call Mrs. Palmer to clean this up? No, Leonard said, still staring at Rachel. I'll handle it. He turned to Victor. We'll discuss Richardson later. Victor nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on Rachel. Of course. A pleasure to meet you, Ms. Monroe. His tone suggested anything but pleasure. After he left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. Rachel finished gathering the broken porcelain onto the tray. Mr. Ashford, I'm truly sorry about the coffee. Forget the coffee, Leonard said. How old are you, Ms. Monroe? 29, he inhaled sharply. And you were found at 6, with no memories. Rachel nodded. The orphanage said I was found wandering alone on a street in Millfield, disoriented, with minor burns on my arms. No identification, no one claiming me. They named me Rachel because it was the name of the social worker's favorite aunt. Leonard's hands trembled slightly as he reached for a framed photograph on his desk. He held it out to Rachel, a family portrait of himself, a beautiful woman with auburn hair, and the little girl from the painting. This was taken a week before the fire, he said. Amelia would be 29 now. From the hallway, Victor Langley watched through the crack in the door, his pleasant demeanor replaced by a cold, calculating stare. As Rachel and Leonard continued to speak, comparing details and coincidences, Victor's hand clenched into a fist. This complicates everything, he whispered to himself, before silently retreating down the hallway. Rachel tossed in her bed, tangled in sweat-soaked sheets. In her dreams, smoke filled her lungs while orange flames danced along walls. A woman screamed her name. Not Rachel, but something else. Something that felt right. She jolted awake at 3 a.m., gasping for air. Just a dream, she whispered, though it felt like more. The nightmares had plagued her for as long as she could remember, but tonight they were more vivid than ever. Her small bedroom in the staff quarters of Ashford Manor was comfortable but sparse. After yesterday's incident with the painting, Mr. Ashford had insisted she stay. Despite the broken china and spilled coffee, he'd even invited her to dinner, his intense blue eyes studying her every movement while they discussed her background. Rachel slipped out of bed and padded to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. The mirror reflected a woman with shadows under her eyes that looked eerily like Leonard Ashford's. This is crazy, she muttered. But was it? The resemblance between her and the girl in the painting was undeniable. Same birthmark, same scar on her forearm that she'd always attributed to her unknown life before the orphanage. Sleep would not return tonight. Rachel dressed quietly and made her way to the kitchen. Cooking had always calmed her nerves, to her surprise. Mrs. Palmer sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea steaming before her. Nightmares? The older woman asked, her expression softer than it had been yesterday. Rachel nodded, filling the kettle. They've been worse since I saw the painting. Mrs. Palmer studied her for a long moment. I was here when it happened, she said finally. The fire. I helped raise Amelia from birth. Rachel's hands froze on the kettle. What was she like? A sad smile crossed the housekeeper's face. Spirited, loved to be in the kitchen, always wanted to help bake cookies, had a particular way of tilting her head when she was curious. The woman's eyes flickered to Rachel, who realized she was doing exactly that. Rachel sat down across from her. What happened the night of the fire? Mrs. Palmer's face clouded. Clara, Mrs. Ashford, and Amelia weren't supposed to be home. They'd gone to visit Clara's sister but returned early. Mr. Ashford was away on business. By the time the fire trucks arrived, The east wing was engulfed. They found Clara's body. But Amelia, she shook her head. There wasn't enough left to identify. Rachel shivered despite the warm kitchen, and no one questioned it. Mr. Langley handled everything. He's been Mr. Ashford's right hand for 30 years, took care of all the arrangements while Mr. Ashford was incapacitated with grief. The same Mr. Langley who had looked at her with such cold assessment yesterday, in his study. Leonard Ashford hadn't slept either. Family albums lay open across his desk. Pictures of Amelia from birth to age 5. Next to them sat Rachel's employment file with her photograph paperclipped to the top. The resemblance was striking, but was he seeing what he wanted to see? After 24 years of grief, was he manufacturing connections that weren't there? Leonard reached for his phone and dialed a number from memory. "It's 4 a.m., a groggy voice answered. "I need your help, Michael. It's about Amelia." A sigh came through the line. "Leonard, we've been through this. She might be alive. I need you to investigate someone." Michael Jensen had been a police detective before opening his private investigation firm. He'd handled the original investigation into the fire. A tragic accident, the report concluded. Faulty wiring. "Who am I investigating?" Michael asked, his tone resigned. "My new chef, Rachel Monroe." Morning found Rachel preparing breakfast, trying to act normal despite her sleepless night. She'd barely set the platter of poached eggs and smoked salmon on the dining room table when Victor Langley entered. "Ms. Monroe," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I hope you're settling in well." "Yes, thank you." Victor selected an apple from the fruit bowl, polishing it against his sleeve. "Fascinating coincidence yesterday, with the painting, but I suppose we all have doppelgangers somewhere in the world." Rachel felt his gaze boring into her. "It was more than a resemblance. Of course it seemed that way to you," Victor said smoothly. "And to Leonard. He's never truly recovered from losing Amelia. You see, over the years, he's had episodes, believing he's seen her in crowds. Once, he followed a teenager for blocks before realizing his mistake." Rachel frowned. "Are you suggesting Mr. Ashford is unstable?" "I'm suggesting he's vulnerable to hope." Victor took a bite of his apple. "And there have been others who've tried to take advantage of that vulnerability." The implication hung in the air between them. "I'm not claiming to be anyone," Rachel said firmly. "I just want to understand why I look exactly like that painting." "A remarkable coincidence, nothing more." Victor's tone hardened slightly. "Leonard is not just my business partner but my oldest friend. I won't stand by while he's subjected to another heartbreak." "I'm not—" "Did you know," Victor interrupted, "that before applying here, you searched for information about the Ashford family online? That your bank account shows multiple cash withdrawals consistent with payments to obtain false background documentation?" Rachel's mouth fell open. "That's not true." Victor shrugged. "It's what my sources tell me. I make it my business to protect Leonard's interests." "Your sources are wrong." "Perhaps." Victor smiled again, all teeth. "But who do you think Leonard will believe? A woman he met yesterday? Or the friend who helped him through the darkest period of his life?" He left her standing there, shaking with anger and confusion. After breakfast, Rachel made her excuses and drove to St. Catherine's Home for Children, the orphanage where she'd spent her childhood. The building looked smaller than she remembered, its brick facade weathered by time. Sister Margaret, now in her 70s, embraced Rachel warmly. "What brings you back after all these years?" she asked. Rachel hesitated. "I need to see my intake records, from when I was found." The nun's smile faded. "Why now?" "I think I might have found my family." Sister Margaret led her to a small office lined with filing cabinets. "We've digitized most records, but yours would still be in paper form." They searched for over an hour before Sister Margaret frowned. "That's strange. Your file should be here. Could it be misplaced?" "Possibly." But the nun looked troubled. "Wait here," she returned with a weathered logbook. "This is the daily journal from when you arrived, I was hoping." Rachel scanned the page dated 24 years ago. A brief entry noted, "Child brought in today, female, approximately 6 years old. Minor burn injuries, no identification, temporary name Rachel, brought by man claiming to have found her wandering on Miller Street." "Do you remember anything about this man?" Rachel asked urgently. Sister Margaret closed her eyes, thinking. "Well-dressed, very concerned. Said he couldn't take her in himself. but would make an anonymous donation. She paused. He never gave his name, but I remember thinking he seemed familiar, like I'd seen his face in the newspaper. Rachel's heart pounded. Was he around 50, silver hair, expensive suit? The nun's eyes widened. You know him. Rachel didn't answer. Her mind was spinning with the implications. If Victor Langley was the man who'd brought her to the orphanage, and if she really was Amelia Ashford. Rachel, are you all right? You've gone pale. I need to borrow this logbook, Rachel said, her voice shaking. It's important. Back in her car, Rachel closed her eyes as another memory fragment surfaced, running through smoke-filled hallways. A man finding her on the street, promising to take her somewhere safe. A man with silver hair and cold eyes. Rachel's hands trembled on the steering wheel as she drove back to Ashford Manor. The orphanage logbook sat on the passenger seat, its pages containing the first tangible link to her past. If Sister Margaret's description matched Victor Langley, and Rachel was almost certain it did, then everything she thought she knew about herself was a lie. Rain started falling again as she pulled through the manor's wrought iron gates. The grand house loomed ahead, no longer just an impressive workplace, but potentially her childhood home, the place where she was born, the place she had fled from in terror as flames consumed the east wing. She parked behind the house near the service entrance, sitting motionless as raindrops drummed on the roof. What should she do now? Confront Victor directly? Tell Leonard? She had no real proof, just an old woman's vague memory and her own increasingly vivid fragments of recollection. A tap on her window startled her. Mrs. Palmer stood in the rain, holding an umbrella. You've been sitting out here for 10 minutes, the housekeeper said when Rachel rolled down her window. Everything all right? Rachel hesitated, then made a decision. Actually, I could use your help. 5 minutes later, they sat at the kitchen table. The logbook opened between them. Mrs. Palmer listened intently as Rachel described her visit to the orphanage. You believe Mr. Langley is the man who took you to St. Catherine's. Mrs. Palmer's usually stoic expression showed genuine concern. It fits, Rachel said. The timing, the description, and this morning, he implied I was running some kind of scam on Mr. Ashford. Mrs. Palmer's lips thinned. Victor Langley has always been protective of Leonard. Some might say controlling. You don't trust him. The older woman chose her words carefully. Let's just say I've worked here for 35 years, and there have been times when Mr. Langley's version of events didn't quite match what I observed. Like what? Rachel leaned forward. Mrs. Palmer glanced toward the door, then lowered her voice. The night of the fire, Mr. Langley told everyone he arrived after it started, but I saw him leaving the property just before the first flames were visible. I mentioned it to the investigators, but it never appeared in their report. Rachel felt a chill run through her. Why would he lie about that? I don't know, at the time I thought perhaps he was embarrassed that he'd left without noticing anything amiss. Mrs. Palmer tapped the logbook. But this adds another dimension. The kitchen door swung open, and they both straightened as Leonard Ashford entered. He looked tired but determined. Rachel, I've been looking for you, he said, then noticed Mrs. Palmer. Edith, would you excuse us? The housekeeper nodded and stood, giving Rachel a subtle look of encouragement before leaving. Leonard sat across from Rachel, his eyes falling on the logbook. What's this? Records from St. Catherine's, the orphanage where I grew up. I went there this morning to see my intake documents. And they're missing. But Sister Margaret remembers the man who brought me in, her description. Rachel hesitated. It sounds a lot like Mr. Langley. Leonard's expression hardened. That's a serious implication. I know, and I'm not making accusations without proof, but there's more. Rachel told him about her conversation with Mrs. Palmer, the housekeeper's memory of seeing Victor leaving before the fire was detected. Leonard ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair. This is difficult to process. Victor has been my closest friend and business partner for 30 years. He helped me through Clara and Amelia's deaths. I couldn't have survived without him. I understand, Rachel said softly. And maybe there's an innocent explanation. But don't you think it's worth investigating? Leonard's gaze was piercing. I already am. I've hired a private investigator to look into your background. And yes, I realize how that sounds, he added, when Rachel stiffened. But I need facts, not just coincidences and vague memories. If you are my daughter, his voice caught. If you're Amelia, I need to be absolutely certain. Rachel nodded slowly. That's fair. I need to be certain too. A tentative understanding passed between them. Leonard reached out, almost touching Rachel's hand, then pulled back. There's something I'd like to show you, he said, rising from his chair. He led her through the house to the second floor, down a long corridor she hadn't explored yet. At the end was a set of double doors secured with a padlock. No one's been in here since the fire, Leonard said as he unlocked it. The east wing was rebuilt, but I couldn't bear to use these rooms again. The doors opened with a creak. Leonard flipped a light switch, illuminating what had once been a child's paradise. A spacious bedroom with faded pink walls, a canopy bed, and shelves filled with toys and books. A thin layer of dust covered everything, giving the room a ghostly quality. This was Amelia's room, Leonard said quietly. Rachel stepped inside, a strange sensation washing over her. The room felt familiar yet foreign, like a place visited in dreams. She moved to a bookshelf, her fingers hovering over a copy of The Secret Garden. This was my favorite book, she whispered. At the orphanage. I read it until the pages fell out. Leonard watched her intently. Clara read it to Amelia every night. Rachel continued her exploration, stopping at a child-sized vanity table. A silver brush and hand mirror set lay on its surface. Without thinking, she picked up the brush. Mother's hairbrush, she murmured, then froze, realizing what she'd said. Leonard's eyes widened. Clara's mother gave her that set. She used it to brush Amelia's hair every night. Rachel put the brush down, her hand shaking. I don't understand what's happening. These memories, they can't be mine, but they feel so real. Maybe they are real, Leonard said softly. A noise at the doorway made them both turn. Victor Langley stood there, his expression a mixture of shock and anger. Leonard, what are you doing? He demanded. This wing is supposed to remain closed. I made that decision, and I can unmake it, Leonard replied coolly. Rachel has a right to see this room. Victor's gaze darted between them, settling on Rachel with unmistakable hostility. A right? She's an employee you met 2 days ago, not family. That remains to be seen, Leonard said. Victor stepped into the room, lowering his voice. Leonard, we've discussed this. You need to be careful. Remember what happened with that girl from Chicago. She nearly took you for millions before we discovered she'd researched Amelia extensively. This is different, Leonard insisted. Is it? Victor pulled a folder from inside his jacket. I took the liberty of having Mrs. Monroe investigated. There are discrepancies in her background. He handed the folder to Leonard, who opened it with a frown. Rachel caught glimpses of what looked like bank statements and social media screenshots. What is this supposed to be? Leonard asked. Evidence that Ms. Monroe researched your family extensively before applying for this position. Evidence of unusual financial transactions consistent with purchasing false documentation. Victor turned to Rachel. Would you care to explain? Rachel stared at him in disbelief. Those are fabricated. I've never... Please, Victor interrupted. Spare us the performance, Leonard. I know you want to believe, but the facts speak for themselves. Leonard looked between the documents and Rachel, doubt clouding his features. Don't let him manipulate you, Rachel said desperately. Ask yourself why he's so determined to discredit me. What is he afraid we'll discover? The tension in the room was palpable as Leonard stood silently, the weight of 24 years of grief and hope hanging in the balance. Leonard closed the folder of evidence and handed it back to Victor. The tension in Amelia's old bedroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. I appreciate your concern, Victor, Leonard said, his tone measured. But I need to investigate this situation myself. Victor's smile tightened. Of course, I'm only looking out for your best interests, as always. I know you are. Leonard placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. Now, if you'll excuse us, Rachel and I have matters to discuss. Something dangerous flickered in Victor's eyes before he nodded curtly and left. Leonard waited until his footsteps faded before turning to Rachel. I don't know what to believe, he admitted, but I do know that fabricating evidence would be simple for someone with Victor's resources. Relief washed over Rachel. Thank you for not dismissing me outright. Don't thank me yet. I still need proof, one way or the other. Leonard's expression turned resolute. Which is why I'd like to take a DNA test. Rachel blinked in surprise. You have Amelia's DNA on file. Not exactly after the fire. Investigators collected samples they believed were from Amelia, but they weren't conclusive. Leonard moved to a dresser and pulled open a drawer. Inside lay a small wooden box. However, I kept some of her things. A baby tooth, a lock of hair from her first haircut. These should provide enough material for comparison. Rachel swallowed hard. A DNA test would end the uncertainty. But what if it proved she wasn't Amelia? The strange connection she felt to this house, to Leonard, to the memories that kept surfacing. Would they all be dismissed as delusions? What if it's negative? She asked quietly. Leonard's blue eyes, so similar to her own, held hers steadily. Then we face that truth together. But what if it's positive? Rachel nodded. How do we do this? I know someone at a private lab, discreet, reliable. I'll make arrangements. Leonard closed the drawer. In the meantime, I think it would be best if we kept this between ourselves. And Mrs. Palmer, Rachel reminded him. She's already involved. Edith can be trusted. She loved Amelia. And Clara. A shadow of grief passed over his face. She has no reason to lie. They left the bedroom together, Leonard carefully locking the door behind them. As they walked down the corridor, Rachel felt as if a piece of herself had awakened in that dust-covered room, a piece that had been sleeping for 24 years. That evening, after preparing dinner, Rachel found herself drawn to the Manor's attic. Mrs. Palmer had mentioned old photo albums stored there, and with Leonard attending a business dinner with Victor in town, Rachel had the perfect opportunity to search, uninterrupted. The attic stairs creaked under her weight. She flicked on the light, revealing a vast space filled with furniture shrouded in white sheets, trunks, and boxes. The accumulated history of the Ashford family. Rachel moved methodically through the space, opening boxes and scanning their contents. Most contained financial records or holiday decorations. But then she found what she was looking for, a cardboard box labeled Family Photos 1990-2000. She carried it to a small cleared space and began sifting through the albums. The first contained formal family portraits, Leonard younger and less careworn, his arm around a beautiful auburn-haired woman. Clara, who held a baby in a christening gown. Rachel traced the woman's face with her finger. Was this her mother? The next album was more casual. Birthday parties, Christmases, beach vacations. In each photo, the little girl grew older, her smile brighter. Rachel recognized herself in that smile. At the bottom of the box lay a smaller container. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a child's drawing, stick figures of a man, woman, and little girl, standing before a house with a yellow sun above, scrawled at the bottom in childish handwriting. For Daddy, love Amelia. Rachel's hand trembled as she set down the drawing. Suddenly she remembered creating it, sitting at a small table in the sunroom while Clara watched, offering encouragement. She remembered Leonard's smile when she presented it to him, how he'd immediately pinned it to his office bulletin board. The memory was so vivid, so real, that Rachel gasped. Not a dream or a fabrication, an actual memory of her life as Amelia Ashford. What are you doing up here? Rachel whirled around to find Victor Langley standing at the top of the attic stairs. His usual polished demeanor seemed slightly disheveled, as if he'd rushed back to the manor. Mr. Langley, I thought you were at dinner with Mr. Ashford. We finished early. Victor's gaze fell on the open photo albums. Looking for inspiration for your performance. Rachel stood, anger replacing her initial shock. Why are you so determined to discredit me? What are you afraid of? Victor stepped closer, his smile dangerous. Let's be clear, Miss Monroe. I've spent the last 24 years helping Leonard rebuild his life after unimaginable tragedy. I won't let some opportunistic con artist destroy that. I'm not. Save it, he snapped. Whatever game you're playing. It ends now. Pack your things and leave by morning. I'll make sure you receive 2 weeks severance. Generous, considering the circumstances. Rachel held her ground. You don't have the authority to fire me. Only Mr. Ashford can do that. Leonard will see reason once I show him what I've discovered about your past. Did you think I wouldn't find out about your gambling debts, or the times you've changed your name? What are you talking about? I've never gambled in my life. Victor's smile was cold. It's amazing what evidence can be manufactured these days. Who do you think Leonard will believe? You, or the documentation I provide? In that moment, Rachel understood with terrible clarity. Victor would stop at nothing to remove her from Ashford Manor, not because he thought she was a con artist, but because he feared she wasn't. "What did you do to Amelia Ashford?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Something shifted in Victor's eyes. A flicker of panic quickly masked. "Amelia died in the fire. Any suggestion otherwise is fantasy." "Is it? Then why are my intake documents missing from St. Catherine's? Why does Sister Margaret's description of the man who brought me there sound exactly like you?" Victor's expression hardened. "Be careful, Miss Monroe. Accidents happen in old houses like this. Stairs can be treacherous. Gas leaks occur." The threat hung in the air between them. Rachel fought to keep her voice steady. "Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you that pursuing this delusion could be dangerous." Victor straightened his tie. "For everyone involved." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Leonard mentioned something about a DNA test. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Evidence has a way of becoming contaminated." After he descended the stairs, Rachel sank to the floor, her heart racing. Victor hadn't just threatened her. He'd all but admitted to being involved in Amelia's disappearance. And now he was planning to sabotage the DNA test. She needed to warn Leonard. But how? Victor would be watching her every move. And without proof, it would be her word against his. The word of a woman who'd only been at Ashford Manor for 3 days, versus that of Leonard's trusted friend of 30 years. Rachel carefully repacked the box of photos, keeping only the child's drawing. As she made her way back downstairs, a plan began to form. If Victor was going to create false evidence against her, she needed to find real evidence against him, and she knew just where to start looking. Rachel woke to the sound of breaking glass. She bolted upright in bed, heart hammering as her eyes adjusted to the darkness. The digital clock on her nightstand read 3:17 a.m. Another crash sent her scrambling out of bed. She fumbled for the light switch, flicking it on to find her bedroom in disarray. The contents of her dresser had been swept to the floor. Her clothes from the closet lay in a heap. The mirror above her vanity was shattered, and spray-painted across the wall in angry red letters was a single word: imposter. Rachel pressed a hand to her mouth, stifling a scream. Someone had been in her room while she slept. Someone could still be there. She grabbed her phone and backed toward the door, scanning for movement in the shadows. The hallway was dark and silent as she slipped out, barefoot and trembling. Mrs. Palmer's quarters were just down the corridor. Rachel had raised her hand to knock when another door opened behind her. She whirled around to find Leonard in a bathrobe, his expression alarmed. "Rachel, what's wrong?" "Someone broke into my room," she whispered. "They destroyed everything." Leonard's face darkened. He guided her to the main part of the house, switching on lights as they went. In the grand kitchen, he sat her at the table and put on a kettle for tea. "Tell me exactly what happened." Rachel described the vandalism, watching Leonard's expression grow increasingly troubled. When she finished, he pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," Rachel said, placing her hand on his arm. "We need to think this through. Whoever did this wants to frighten me away." "If it's Victor," Leonard frowned. "You think Victor would break into your room in the middle of the night? That's a serious accusation, Rachel. After his threats in the attic yesterday." "Yes, I do." She held Leonard's gaze. "Or someone working for him." The kettle whistled, and Leonard poured 2 cups of tea before sitting across from her. "Victor may have his suspicions about you, but vandalism and breaking and entering, that's criminal behavior. What if he's desperate?" Rachel leaned forward. "What if he knows I'm Amelia and is terrified of what will happen when you find out?" Leonard's expression was pained. "I've known Victor for most of my adult life. We built our business empire together. Why would he hide my daughter from me?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But the evidence is mounting. My missing intake documents. Mrs. Palmer seeing him leave right before the fire. His threats. And now this." She gestured toward her vandalized room. "Something isn't right." Leonard sipped his tea, his thoughts clearly troubled. "We'll have the DNA results soon. That will provide some answers. Unless Victor tampers with them," Rachel said quietly. "He mentioned the test to me yesterday. Said evidence can become contaminated." Leonard set down his cup with a sharp click. "He said that," Rachel nodded. "He's watching us, Leonard, and he's getting desperate. By morning, Rachel had cleaned up most of the damage to her room. With Mrs. Palmer's help, the housekeeper's usual stoic demeanor cracked when she saw the spray-painted message. "This wasn't just some random break-in," she muttered, scrubbing at the paint. "This was personal. Mr. Ashford wanted to call the police," Rachel said, folding torn clothing. "And you stopped him." Mrs. Palmer gave her a shrewd look. "Smart girl. Police reports become public. Publicity is the last thing we need right now. Especially if—" She trailed off. "If what?" Mrs. Palmer sighed. "If Victor is behind this. He has connections everywhere. Police, local government, business. He's been the power behind the Ashford empire for decades." Rachel sat on the edge of her bed. Why would he hide Amelia? Hide me? All these years. What could he possibly gain? Mrs. Palmer's hands stilled on the wall. "Control," she said simply. "After the fire, Leonard was broken. He would have lost everything if Victor hadn't stepped in to run the business. Over time, Leonard recovered, but Victor never fully relinquished that control. But Leonard is still the owner, the CEO. On paper, yes," Mrs. Palmer resumed scrubbing. "But Victor makes most of the decisions. Leonard trusts him implicitly, or did, until you arrived." A chill ran down Rachel's spine. What would a man like Victor do to maintain his power? Later that morning, Rachel found Leonard in his study, going through financial records. He looked up when she entered, his expression guarded. "I spoke with the lab," he said. "The DNA samples were delivered safely. We should have results in a few days." Rachel nodded, relieved. "I'm sorry about last night. I shouldn't have accused Victor without solid proof." "Your room was vandalized," Leonard replied grimly. "Someone is trying to frighten you away. We just don't know who, or why." Rachel moved to the window, looking out at the manicured gardens. "Leonard, there's something I need to do." "What's that?" "I want to go back to the orphanage. Speak with Sister Margaret again. Maybe there's something else she remembers. Something that could help us." Leonard considered this, then nodded. "I think that's wise. But you shouldn't go alone." He reached for his phone. "I'll have Michael Jensen meet you there, the private investigator. Yes, he's been looking into your background and finding some inconsistencies, though not the kind Victor suggested." Leonard's expression was grim. "Your employment records, your credit history, they're too perfect, too clean, as if they were created recently." Rachel's heart sank. So, Victor was telling the truth about the false documentation. "Not exactly. Michael believes your identity as Rachel Monroe may have been manufactured, but not by you. The trail leads back 24 years, to when you were first brought to St. Catherine's." Rachel struggled to process this. "You're saying someone created an entire identity for me. Why?" "That's what we need to find out," Leonard said, his voice hardening. "And I think you're right. Sister Margaret may have more answers than she realizes." The drive to St. Catherine's Home for Children felt different this time. Rachel kept checking her rearview mirror, half expecting to see Victor's sleek black Mercedes following her. Instead, a nondescript sedan trailed at a discreet distance. Michael Jensen, the PI Leonard had hired. St. Catherine's looked peaceful in the morning light, children playing in the yard under the watchful eyes of 2 nuns. Rachel found Sister Margaret in the small chapel, arranging flowers at the altar. "Rachel," the elderly nun greeted her with a warm smile. "Twice in 1 week. To what do we owe this pleasure?" Rachel glanced around to ensure they were alone. "Sister, I need to ask you more about the man who brought me here. It's important." Sister Margaret's smile faded. "You seem troubled, child. Has something happened?" "I think I've found my family," Rachel said carefully. "But there may be someone trying to keep us apart." The nun nodded slowly and gestured to a pew. As they sat, Rachel noticed Michael Jensen slip quietly into the back of the chapel, keeping a respectful distance. "The man who brought you to us," Sister Margaret began, "was very specific about your care. He made a substantial donation, enough to cover your expenses for years, but insisted it remain anonymous. He said you needed a fresh start, away from trauma." "What trauma?" Rachel pressed. "He said you'd witnessed something terrible. A fire, I believe, that you were in shock and needed a new environment, a new identity." Rachel leaned forward. "Did he say where the fire was?" Or who I was before. Sister Margaret shook her head. No details. Just that you were safer with your past forgotten. And you accepted this, without contacting the authorities. The nun looked pained. It was a different time, Rachel. He had documentation. A death certificate for your parents. Guardianship papers. Everything seemed in order. Could those papers still exist? They should be in your file. Sister Margaret frowned. The file that's now missing. Rachel felt a chill. When did you last see my file? The nun thought for a moment. Perhaps 3 weeks ago, a man came, said he was doing a study on successful orphanage outcomes. He had proper credentials, authorization from the diocese. He reviewed several files, including yours. What did he look like? Older gentleman. Well-dressed, silver hair. Sister Margaret trailed off, her eyes widening. Oh dear. It was him, wasn't it? The same man who brought you to us all those years ago. Rachel nodded grimly. I think so, sister. Do you remember anything else? Any detail could help? The nun closed her eyes, thinking hard. There was something. When he brought you in, you were clutching a small toy, a stuffed sunflower with a face. You wouldn't let go of it. He seemed disturbed by it, tried to take it from you, but you became hysterical. A memory flashed in Rachel's mind. A smiling, plush sunflower, its yellow petals soft against her cheek. Her mother had given it to her, called it Sunny. She'd carried it everywhere. What happened to it? She whispered. You kept it. It should still be with your personal effects in storage. We keep a box for each child who passes through our care. Rachel's heart raced. If that sunflower toy matched the one in the painting, the one she was holding as Amelia Ashford, it would be another piece of evidence linking her to her true identity. As Sister Margaret went to retrieve the box, Rachel caught Michael Jensen's eye across the chapel. The investigator nodded slightly, confirming he'd heard everything. The hunt for the truth was intensifying, and somewhere in Victor Langley's carefully constructed web of lies, Rachel felt certain they would find the answer to the most important question. Why had he stolen her from her father's house? Sister Margaret returned carrying a worn cardboard box labeled Rachel M. With trembling hands, Rachel lifted the lid. Inside lay the meager collection of her childhood. A few drawings, school certificates, a handmade Mother's Day card addressed to the sisters, and, nestled at the bottom, a faded plush sunflower with a smiling face. Rachel lifted it carefully. One petal was singed. The yellow fabric darkened to brown. The scent of smoke still clung faintly to its stuffing, even after 24 years. Sunny, she whispered, the name coming unbidden to her lips. Sister Margaret's eyes widened. Yes, that's what you called it. How did you remember? Rachel didn't answer. She was lost in another memory, sitting on her mother's lap in a garden, Clara Ashford placing the toy in her hands. A sunflower for my sunshine, her mother had said. Michael Jensen approached, his weathered face serious. May I? He asked, gesturing to the toy. Rachel handed it to him reluctantly. The investigator examined it carefully, particularly the scorched petal. Fire damage, he confirmed, consistent with the timeline. Can I keep this? Rachel asked Sister Margaret. Of course. Everything in that box belongs to you. Rachel placed the sunflower in her bag, along with the Mother's Day card and drawings. As they left the orphanage, Michael fell into step beside her. Leonard asked me to share my findings with you directly, he said, once they reached the parking lot. I've uncovered some irregularities in the original fire investigation. What kind of irregularities? Reports were amended after initial filing. Witness statements disappeared. The fire marshal who determined the cause was transferred to another state 2 weeks later, with a suspiciously generous relocation package. Rachel's breath caught. Are you saying the fire wasn't an accident? I'm saying the conclusion of faulty wiring was never properly substantiated. Michael's expression was grim. And the missing body of a 5-year-old girl should have triggered a more extensive investigation than it did. Victor covered it up, Rachel said, the pieces falling into place. But why start the fire in the first place? That's our missing link. Michael handed her a business card. I'll keep digging. Call me if you remember anything else. Any detail could be significant. Rachel returned to Ashford Manor late in the afternoon to find Mrs. Palmer waiting anxiously by the service entrance. Thank goodness you're back, the housekeeper said, pulling Rachel inside. "Leonard needs you in the library immediately. He's found something." Rachel followed Mrs. Palmer through the house, the plush sunflower tucked in her bag. Leonard was standing at a large table covered with stacks of papers when they entered. "Rachel," he said, looking up. His face was pale, his expression a mixture of shock and fury. "We've been going through old company files, records from around the time of the fire." "We?" Rachel asked, glancing around the empty room. "Mrs. Palmer has been helping me. Victor's at a business meeting in the city." Leonard picked up a document. 24 years ago, just before the fire, our company was on the verge of financial collapse. "But Ashford Enterprises is worth billions," Rachel said, confused. "Now, yes. But back then, we had overextended. Several major investments failed simultaneously. We were leveraged to the hilt." Leonard's hands trembled slightly. "I was out of town, meeting with potential investors, a last-ditch effort to save the company." Mrs. Palmer stepped forward. Mr. Ashford didn't know how bad things were. Mr. Langley had been hiding the true financial situation for months. "Victor was in charge of our financial operations," Leonard continued. "According to these records, he'd made a series of increasingly risky investments without proper authorization. When they failed, he tried to cover his tracks." Rachel sat down slowly as the implications sank in. He needed a distraction, something so catastrophic that you wouldn't think to review the financial records. Leonard nodded grimly. "A tragic fire that claimed my wife and daughter would certainly qualify." His voice broke. "I was so devastated I couldn't function for months. Victor handled everything. The investigation, the insurance, the company." "The insurance?" Rachel repeated. "Was there a large life insurance policy on your wife and daughter?" Leonard's expression darkened. "Yes. Clara insisted on it when Amelia was born. That money, combined with selling off some assets, saved the company." He slammed his fist on the table. "Victor used my family's death to rescue himself from financial ruin." Rachel pulled the sunflower toy from her bag. "I found this at St. Catherine's. It was with me when I arrived." Leonard stared at the toy, recognition washing over his face. "Amelia's Sonny. Clara bought it for her 5th birthday." He reached for it with trembling hands. "Where? How did you get this?" "It was in my personal effects box. Sister Margaret said I was clutching it when I was brought in." Rachel hesitated. "There's more. Michael Jensen discovered irregularities in the fire investigation, reports that were amended, witnesses whose statements disappeared." Mrs. Palmer nodded. "That matches what I remember. My statement about seeing Victor leave just before the fire was never included in the official report." Leonard sank into a chair, the sunflower clutched in his hands. "All these years, I trusted him. He was at Amelia's birth. He was best man at my wedding." His voice hardened. "He killed Clara and tried to kill Amelia, then stole her away and hid her for 24 years. But why keep me alive at all?" Rachel wondered. "If he wanted to eliminate your family, why not? Finish the job." Leonard's expression was bleak. "Maybe even Victor has limits to what he'll do. Killing an adult in a fire that could be ruled accidental is one thing. Murdering a child directly, in cold blood. Or perhaps he intended to," Mrs. Palmer suggested quietly, "but couldn't go through with it when the moment came. So he created a new identity for you instead. Placed you far enough away that you'd never find your way back to Ashford Manor." Rachel shuddered at how close she'd come to a darker fate. "We need more concrete evidence. The DNA test will confirm who I am. But it won't prove Victor's crimes." "The fire marshal's report might," Leonard said. "The original, unaltered version." "Where would that be?" Rachel asked. "County Records Office," Mrs. Palmer suggested. "They would have maintained their own copies. Separate from the police department." Leonard stood, new determination in his eyes. "I'll have Michael retrieve those files immediately. In the meantime." He broke off as his phone rang, checking the caller ID. He frowned. "It's the lab." Rachel held her breath as Leonard answered. The DNA test results weren't expected for days. An early call could only mean something had gone wrong. "This is Leonard Ashford," he said, putting the call on speaker. "Mr. Ashford, this is Dr. Patel from Genetech Labs. I'm calling about the comparison test you requested." "Yes." "You're ahead of schedule." "Actually, sir, there's been an incident. Someone broke into our facility last night. Several samples were tampered with. including yours. Rachel and Leonard exchanged alarmed looks. What kind of tampering? Leonard demanded. The DNA samples you provided for comparison, the tooth and hair samples, appear to have been deliberately contaminated. They're now unusable. Leonard's jaw tightened. I see. Is there any way to know who did this? The police are reviewing our security footage. Would you like us to proceed with testing the current sample against other reference points? What do you mean? We could compare Ms. Monroe's DNA against yours, Mr. Ashford, if she's your biological daughter. We'd expect a paternal match. Leonard looked at Rachel, who nodded quickly. Yes, please proceed with that, Leonard said. How soon can we have results? I can put a rush on it. Tomorrow morning at the earliest. After ending the call, Leonard turned to Rachel, his expression thunderous. Victor's getting desperate, breaking into a lab, contaminating evidence. These are serious crimes. He knows we're close to the truth, Rachel said. We need to be careful if he's willing to go this far. I'm not losing you a second time, Leonard said fiercely. He turned to Mrs. Palmer, Edith. Not a word to Victor about any of this when he returns. As far as he knows, we're still waiting on the original test results. Mrs. Palmer nodded. Of course, sir. And what about the fire marshal's report? I'll call Michael now. Leonard looked at the plush sunflower still in his hands, then gently passed it back to Rachel. Keep this safe. It's one piece of evidence Victor can't tamper with. A physical link between Rachel Monroe and Amelia Ashford. Rachel cradled the toy, feeling both the weight of the past and the hope for the future it represented. Tomorrow they would know for certain if she was Leonard's daughter, but in her heart, she already knew the truth. The question now was whether they could prove Victor's crimes before he silenced them permanently. Rachel woke early, the anxiety of waiting for DNA results making sleep impossible. Dawn light barely filtered through her curtains as she dressed and headed to the kitchen. To her surprise, Leonard was already there, nursing a cup of coffee, dark circles under his eyes. You couldn't sleep either, she asked, pouring herself a cup. Leonard shook his head. Too many thoughts, too many years wasted. They sat in companionable silence, the grandfather clock in the hall marking the minutes with solemn ticks. Finally, Rachel spoke. What happens if the test confirms I'm Amelia? Leonard's eyes, so like her own, met hers. We build a case against Victor, bring him to justice for what he did to our family. And after that, a smile softened his features. We make up for lost time if you want to. Rachel nodded, unexpected tears pricking her eyes. I'd like that. The kitchen door swung open, and Mrs. Palmer entered, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Mr. Ashford, Ms. Monroe, Victor's car just pulled into the driveway. He wasn't expected back until this afternoon. Leonard and Rachel exchanged alarmed glances. He knows something's up, Leonard said, rising from his chair. Edith, make sure all our documents from yesterday are secured in my safe, Rachel. Act normal. We're still waiting for test results as far as Victor's concerned. Rachel had barely finished rinsing her coffee cup when Victor strode into the kitchen. Immaculately dressed despite the early hour, his smile seemed fixed, his eyes calculating as they darted between Rachel and Leonard. Good morning, he said smoothly. I see everyone's up bright and early today. Couldn't sleep, Leonard replied, his tone casual. Coffee, please. Victor sat at the table. I cut my business trip short. Something came up that requires my immediate attention. Rachel tensed. Had he discovered they were investigating him? Nothing serious, I hope, Leonard said, pouring coffee. Just some irregularities at the lab that's handling your DNA test. Victor's gaze slid to Rachel. Apparently there was a break-in. Samples may have been compromised. How unfortunate, Leonard said, maintaining his composure. And how did you hear about this? Victor's smile tightened. I have my sources. I was concerned about potential delays in getting your answers. Rachel fought to keep her expression neutral. Victor was fishing, trying to determine how much they knew. The lab called yesterday, Leonard confirmed. They're proceeding with alternative testing methods. Something dangerous flashed in Victor's eyes. Alternative methods. Comparing my DNA directly with Rachel's, if she's my biological daughter, there should be a paternal match. Victor set down his cup with a sharp click. I see. And when do you expect these results? Today or tomorrow, Leonard said. We'll know soon enough. Victor studied them both, his mask of friendliness slipping slightly. "Indeed we will. In the meantime, Rachel, I believe you have meal preparations to attend to." The dismissal was clear. Rachel hesitated, reluctant to leave Leonard alone with Victor, but Leonard gave her a slight nod. She excused herself and headed toward the pantry, but instead of entering, she lingered just outside the kitchen door, listening. "You're making a mistake, Leonard." Victor's voice had dropped, taking on a harder edge. "This woman has you wrapped around her finger, and you're suddenly an expert on my family," Leonard countered. "You barely knew Amelia. I knew her well enough to recognize an imposter. Your grief is clouding your judgment. Is it? Or am I finally seeing clearly after 24 years? A chair scraped against the floor as someone stood. "We've been friends for 30 years, Leonard. Partners. I helped you rebuild after the tragedy. Now you're throwing that away on a wild hope. Some friends aren't worth keeping, Victor." The silence that followed was thick with tension. Finally, Victor spoke, his voice cold. "I'm late for a meeting. We'll continue this discussion later." Footsteps approached, and Rachel quickly slipped into the pantry, her heart pounding. Through the cracked door, she watched Victor stride past, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. Only when his footsteps faded did she breathe again. By mid-morning, Rachel had prepared lunch and was chopping vegetables for dinner when Mrs. Palmer hurried into the kitchen. "Mr. Ashford wants you to join him for a drive," she said, her voice low. "He's waiting by the garage. Go quickly before Mr. Langley returns." Rachel removed her apron, confused. "What's happened?" "Michael Jensen called. He's found the original fire marshal and convinced him to talk." Rachel's heart leaped. This could be the evidence they needed to prove Victor's involvement in the fire. Leonard was waiting in his silver Mercedes, engine already running. "Get in," he said as Rachel approached. "We don't have much time." They pulled out of the estate, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Rachel glanced back at the imposing silhouette of Ashford Manor, a strange feeling of foreboding washing over her. "Michael found Thomas Reeves, the fire marshal who investigated the fire," Leonard explained as they drove. "He's retired now, living about an hour from here. He's agreed to give a sworn statement about what really happened. Will that be enough to charge Victor, combined with the DNA results and the financial records showing his motive?" "It should be." Leonard's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. 24 years, Rachel. He took 24 years from us." They drove in tense silence, the countryside rolling past outside the windows. About 15 minutes into their journey, Rachel noticed a black SUV following at a distance. "Leonard," she said quietly, "I think we're being followed." He checked the rearview mirror. "How long has that vehicle been behind us?" "Since we left the estate, I think." Leonard's jaw tightened. Victor must have had someone watching the house. The SUV suddenly accelerated, closing the distance between them. Leonard pressed harder on the gas, but on the narrow country road, there were few opportunities to outrun their pursuer. "Call Michael," Leonard instructed, tossing his phone to Rachel. "Tell him what's happening." Rachel had just unlocked the phone when the SUV rammed them from behind. The Mercedes lurched forward, tires squealing. "Hold on!" Leonard shouted, fighting to maintain control as the SUV struck them again. The road ahead curved sharply, with a steep embankment to the right. As they approached the curve, the SUV pulled alongside and swerved into them, metal screaming against metal. Leonard wrestled with the steering wheel, but the Mercedes was forced off the road. Rachel screamed as they plunged down the embankment, the world spinning around them until a jarring impact threw her against her seatbelt. Glass shattered, metal crumpled, then stillness. Rachel blinked, disoriented. The car had come to rest on its side against a tree. Blood trickled down her forehead, and pain radiated from her shoulder. "Leonard," she called, her voice hoarse. A groan came from beside her. Leonard was slumped against the driver's door, a gash on his temple bleeding freely. The airbags had deployed but hadn't fully protected him from the impact. "Leonard!" Rachel reached for him, wincing at the pain in her shoulder. His eyes fluttered open. "Rachel, are you hurt?" "I'm okay. We need to get out of here." A shadow fell across the windshield. A man in a dark suit peered down at the wreckage, then spoke into a phone. Rachel couldn't hear the words, but the intent was clear. They weren't meant to survive this accident. With trembling hands, she unbuckled Leonard's seatbelt, then her own. "Can you move?" Leonard nodded weakly. The back window. It's shattered. Rachel twisted around. The rear windshield had indeed collapsed inward. If they could crawl through it, they might reach the woods before the man made his way down the embankment. "You go first," Leonard insisted, pressing his phone into her hand. "Call Michael. Get help. I'm not leaving you. Please, Rachel. I just found my daughter. I can't lose you again." Tears blurred her vision as she squeezed through the broken window, glass cutting her palms. Once outside, she helped Leonard through, supporting his weight as they staggered toward the tree line. Behind them, voices shouted. The man from the SUV was making his way down the steep slope, joined by another figure. "They're coming," Rachel whispered, pulling Leonard deeper into the forest. "Keep going," Leonard gasped, blood still flowing from his head wound. "No matter what happens, keep going." As they disappeared among the trees, Rachel clutched the phone like a lifeline. Their evidence against Victor was mounting, but so was the danger. He was no longer hiding behind subtle threats and manipulations. Victor Langley had moved to open warfare. The forest grew denser as Rachel and Leonard pushed deeper into the trees. Leonard's steps were increasingly unsteady, the gash on his temple still bleeding. When he stumbled for the third time, Rachel guided him to a fallen log. "We need to rest," she insisted, tearing a strip from her shirt to press against his wound. Leonard nodded weakly. "Just for a minute. Those men will still be searching." Rachel pulled out the phone, relieved to find it had survived the crash. She dialed Michael Jensen's number with shaking fingers. "Leonard," the investigator answered on the first ring. "It's Rachel. We've been run off the road about 15 miles from Ashford Manor, heading east on County Road 17. Her voice was remarkably steady despite her racing heart. "2 men are pursuing us. Leonard's hurt. Are you hidden?" "In the woods, but they're searching. We can't stay long." "I'll find you," Michael promised. "Is your GPS on?" Rachel checked the phone. "Yes. Keep it that way. I'm 20 minutes out. Sheriff Donovan is a friend. I'll have him send deputies, but stay hidden until I confirm they've arrived. Victor has connections in the department. Hurry," Rachel urged before ending the call. Leonard's eyes were unfocused, his skin pale beneath the blood. "Concussion," Rachel thought with mounting concern. "We need to keep moving," he muttered, trying to stand. "No, you're hurt, and Michael's on his way." She gently pressed him back down. "Tell me about the fire marshal. What did Michael learn?" The question seemed to focus Leonard's attention. Thomas Reeves, he initially ruled the fire as arson, found evidence of accelerant, but the report was altered, and he was transferred with a substantial bonus. Did he say who pressured him? Victor never dealt with him directly. Too smart for that. Used intermediaries. Leonard's voice strengthened as he spoke. But Reeves kept copies of his original findings, hidden away as insurance. "So we have proof the fire was deliberately set," Rachel said, hope rising. A branch snapped nearby. Rachel froze, straining to hear more. Hushed voices filtered through the trees, not far away. "We need to move," she whispered, helping Leonard to his feet. They crept forward, staying low among the underbrush. Leonard was moving more steadily now, the brief rest having helped. The voices behind them grew fainter. "I remember more," Rachel whispered as they navigated through the trees. "About the night of the fire." Leonard glanced at her. "What do you recall?" "Mother, Clara, put me to bed early. I woke to smoke and her screaming. She carried me toward the stairs, but the flames were everywhere." Rachel swallowed hard. "She told me to run outside and wait by the big oak tree. I made it out, but she went back in for something. She never came out again." Leonard's face contorted with grief. "Clara always said if there was ever a fire, that's where we'd meet. The oak at the edge of the garden. I waited there, clutching Sonny, terrified and alone. Then a car pulled up. A man got out. Victor. He said he'd take me somewhere safe, that we'd call Daddy." Rachel's voice shook. "Instead, he drove me to the orphanage, told me my parents were dead, that my name was Rachel now." Leonard's hand found hers, squeezing tightly. "He stole everything from us. But why keep me alive at all? Why not? Even Victor has lines he won't cross," Leonard said grimly. "Directly murdering a child is different from starting a fire that might kill one, and he needed me broken but functional. If both you and Clara died, I might never have recovered enough to run the company." The realization of Victor's cold calculation sent a chill through Rachel. He'd calibrated his crime perfectly, enough loss to devastate Leonard while ensuring he remained useful. The phone in Rachel's hand vibrated. A text from Michael. "At your location. 2 deputies with me. Whistle if you can hear us." Rachel put her fingers to her lips and let out a sharp whistle. An answering whistle came from their left, maybe 100 yards away. "This way," she said, leading Leonard toward the sound. They emerged into a small clearing to find Michael and 2 uniformed deputies waiting. The investigator rushed forward to support Leonard, who had begun swaying again. "Ambulance is on the way," Michael said, helping Leonard sit. "What happened?" Rachel quickly explained the attack on their car while one of the deputies radioed in a description of the black SUV and its occupants. "Victor's getting desperate," Michael noted, examining Leonard's head wound. "He must know we're closing in." "Did you get the fire marshal's statement?" Leonard asked. Michael nodded. "Signed and notarized this morning. And there's more," the lab called. "DNA results are in." Rachel's breath caught. "And it's a match, Leonard. Rachel is your biological daughter. She's Amelia." Despite their situation, injured in the woods, hunted by Victor's men, joy bloomed in Rachel's chest. Scientific confirmation of what she'd felt in her heart. She was Amelia Ashford. Leonard reached for her hand, tears in his eyes. "I never gave up hope," he whispered. Not completely. The wail of an ambulance siren interrupted their moment. One of the deputies guided the paramedics to their location with a radio. Within minutes, Leonard was being loaded onto a stretcher despite his protests. "I'm not going to the hospital," he insisted. "We need to deal with Victor. You have a concussion and need stitches," the paramedic countered. "This isn't optional." "Sir," Rachel leaned down. "Go, get treated. I'll meet you there with Michael." Leonard caught her wrist. "Don't confront Victor alone. He's dangerous." "I know," Rachel's expression hardened. "But it's time to end this. 24 years is long enough." At the hospital, Leonard received 8 stitches and was diagnosed with a mild concussion. Against medical advice, he checked himself out 3 hours later. "I should be under observation for 24 hours, he admitted as they drove back to Ashford Manor. "But we don't have that luxury. Victor knows his time is running out." In the back seat, Michael Jensen reviewed their evidence. "We have the DNA confirmation, the fire marshal's original report proving arson, financial records showing motive, and Mrs. Palmer's testimony about seeing Victor leave just before the fire, plus Rachel's eyewitness account of Victor taking her to the orphanage." "Is it enough?" Rachel asked from the passenger seat. "For an arrest warrant?" "Yes. For a conviction, possibly." Michael looked troubled. "Victor has resources, connections. He won't go down without a fight." "Then we need to be prepared," Leonard said grimly. "We need a plan that leaves him no escape." Back at Ashford Manor, they were greeted by an anxious Mrs. Palmer. "Thank heavens you're both all right," she exclaimed, ushering them inside. "When I heard about the accident—" "Victor?" Leonard asked tersely. "In his office at the company headquarters. He called looking for you. Sounded concerned about your accident. I said you were resting upstairs." They gathered in Leonard's study, drawing the curtains against the falling darkness. Rachel felt a strange sense of déjà vu. It was in this same room she'd first seen the painting of herself as a child, setting everything in motion. "Victor believes we're injured and hiding," Leonard said, spreading documents across his desk. "That gives us an advantage. He doesn't know how much evidence we've gathered. We need to draw him out," Michael suggested. "Get him to confess." Rachel thought of the plush sunflower, still in her room. "I have an idea," she said slowly. "Something that might make him panic enough to incriminate himself." The others looked at her expectantly. "What if we let him think there's more evidence? Something Clara left behind that night. Something she went back into the burning house to retrieve." "Like what?" Leonard asked. "A safe deposit box key with documents incriminating him in financial fraud from before the fire." Rachel leaned forward. "We tell him Clara suspected what he was doing and gathered proof. That's why she came home early that night, to confront him with what she'd found." Michael nodded slowly. "And that's why he started the fire. Not just to distract from his financial crimes, but to silence Clara and destroy her evidence. But we let him think the key survived," Leonard continued, catching on. that Clara gave it to Amelia for safekeeping before sending her out of the house, and that I've remembered where it is," Rachel finished. "If Victor believes such evidence exists and is about to be discovered, he might confess while trying to explain or threaten his way out of it," Michael concluded. It could work. They spent the next hour refining their plan. Leonard would call Victor, claim Rachel had recovered a critical memory, and invite him to the manor for a private resolution the following evening. Meanwhile, Michael would coordinate with trusted law enforcement officials to monitor the meeting as night fell over Ashford Manor. Rachel stood at the window of her bedroom, watching lightning flicker in the distance. A storm was coming, much like the one that had raged the day she'd first arrived at the mansion. Soon, she would face the man who had stolen her identity, killed her mother, and separated her from her father for 24 years. The man who had just tried to kill them both to protect his secrets. In her hand, she clutched the singed plush sunflower, a small piece of her true self that had survived against all odds, just as she had. Thunder rumbled over Ashford Manor as evening approached. Rachel stood in front of the mirror in Amelia's old bedroom, hardly recognizing herself. After 24 years as Rachel Monroe, she was reclaiming her identity as Amelia Ashford. The DNA test had confirmed what her heart already knew, but saying the name aloud still felt strange on her tongue. "Amelia," she whispered, watching her reflection. The woman looking back was no longer just a chef with no past. She was the daughter of Leonard and Clara Ashford, survivor of a tragedy orchestrated by a man she'd once been told to call Uncle Victor. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Leonard entered, his face tense despite the bandage on his temple. "Victor's on his way," he said. "Michael has deputies stationed around the property, out of sight. The study has been wired for sound." He hesitated, then added, "You don't have to do this. I can confront him alone." Amelia, shook her head. "No, I need to face him. For Mom. For us." Leonard squeezed her shoulder gently. "Clara would be so proud of the woman you've become." They descended to the study together, where a storm raged outside the tall windows. The room had been carefully staged, the fire marshal's report visible on the desk, financial documents from 24 years ago spread across a side table, and the plush sunflower prominently displayed on a chair. Mrs. Palmer appeared at the doorway. "Mr. Langley has arrived," she announced, her voice steady despite the tension vibrating through the house. "Show him in," Leonard replied, positioning himself behind his desk. Rachel stood by the fireplace, next to the painting that had started it all. She traced her finger along its gilded frame, remembering the shock of recognition on her first day at Ashford Manor. The sound of footsteps approached, and then Victor Langley stood in the doorway. His silver hair was immaculate as always, his suit perfectly pressed. But his eyes betrayed him, darting quickly around the room, assessing threats and escape routes. "Leonard," he said, his voice controlled. "I was relieved to hear you were all right after your accident." His gaze shifted to Rachel, hardening. "Ms. Monroe." "Victor," Leonard replied coldly. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. Your message said it was urgent. Something about Rachel recovering her memories." Victor stepped into the room, hands casually in his pockets. "Yes." Leonard gestured to a chair opposite his desk. "Please sit." Victor remained standing. "I prefer to stand. What memories has she supposedly recovered?" Rachel moved away from the fireplace, placing herself between Victor and the door. "I remember everything now," she said quietly. "The fire, my mother's last words, and you, finding me by the oak tree afterward." A flicker of unease crossed Victor's face before his mask of concern returned. "Leonard, surely you don't believe this charade. We've discussed the psychological phenomenon of false memory. Save it." "Victor," Leonard cut him off. "The DNA results came back this morning. Rachel is my daughter. She is Amelia." Thunder crashed outside, momentarily darkening the room. When the lights stabilized, Victor's expression had hardened. "Congratulations," he said flatly. "Though I'm surprised you trust a DNA test you didn't personally oversee, given the stakes. The test is just confirmation of what we already knew." Leonard gestured to the plush sunflower. "Amelia was clutching that toy when you took her to St. Catherine's. You tried to take it away, but she wouldn't let go." Victor's gaze fixed on the singed toy. "An interesting story. Unprovable, of course. Actually, we have Sister Margaret's testimony, Rachel countered. She remembers you quite clearly. The well-dressed man who brought me in with burns. Claimed I was orphaned and made a large anonymous donation to ensure no questions were asked. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Victor's face. Even if that were true, which I deny, it proves nothing except that I may have helped a child in need. Leonard leaned forward. We also have the original fire marshal's report, the one that identified accelerant at multiple ignition points, the one that ruled the fire as arson before you had it altered. Ridiculous, Victor scoffed, but his hand tightened on the back of the chair. That fire was thoroughly investigated and ruled accidental. After the original investigator was transferred with a suspiciously generous relocation package, Rachel added. He kept copies of his original findings, signed an affidavit yesterday. Victor's composure wavered for an instant before he regained control. I see you've constructed quite a narrative, but why would I, of all people, want to harm Clara and Amelia? I love them like my own family. Financial fraud, Leonard said bluntly, gesturing to the documents on the side table. The company was collapsing due to your unauthorized investments. You needed a distraction big enough to keep me from reviewing the books. You needed insurance money to plug the financial hole you'd created, Rachel continued. And you needed my father too devastated to notice what you were doing. Victor laughed. The sound brittle. This is absurd. You have no proof I was involved in any financial impropriety. That's where you're wrong, Leonard said softly. Clara suspected what you were doing. She came home early that night to confront you with evidence she'd gathered. For the first time, genuine alarm flashed across Victor's face. What evidence? Leonard and Rachel exchanged a glance. The trap baited. Before the fire, Clara placed damning documents in a safe deposit box, Leonard said. She gave the key to Amelia for safekeeping. Impossible, Victor whispered, then quickly recovered. Clara had no knowledge of the company's finances. She was smarter than you gave her credit for, Rachel said, moving toward the sunflower. She noticed the discrepancies in the reports you showed Leonard, started investigating on her own. When the fire started, Leonard continued, Clara sent Amelia outside with the key, then went back in to retrieve something else. Probably more evidence. That's why she didn't make it out. Victor's eyes fixed on the sunflower with growing dread. You expect me to believe a 5-year-old girl kept a safe deposit key hidden for 24 years? Rachel picked up the toy, turning it over in her hands. Not hidden, she said softly. Protected. Mom sewed it into Sonny before giving him to me that night. Keep him safe, she told me. Don't show anyone. The color drained from Victor's face. You're bluffing, he said. But his voice lacked conviction. There is no key. Why don't we find out? Rachel began to examine the seams of the plush toy, as if searching for something hidden inside. Victor lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for the sunflower. Give me that. Leonard moved to intercept him, but Victor was quicker, shoving the older man aside. His fingers closed around Rachel's wrist in a bruising grip. Where is the key? He demanded, his mask of civility completely gone. What did Clara hide? Take your hands off my daughter, Leonard growled, regaining his balance. Your daughter, Victor laughed wildly. I gave her a new life. I could have left her to burn with Clara, but I didn't. The room fell silent, except for the storm outside. Victor froze, suddenly aware of what he'd admitted. You just confessed, Rachel said quietly. To the fire, to taking me. Victor's grip tightened painfully. There is no recording device in this room. It's your word against mine. Not quite, Michael Jensen said from the doorway, a small recording device in his hand. Behind him stood 2 police officers. The fight drained from Victor all at once. He released Rachel's wrist, stepping back with a look of defeat. It wasn't supposed to happen that way, he said, his voice hollow. The fire was just meant to be a distraction. Clara and Amelia weren't supposed to be home. But when they came back early, you went ahead anyway, Leonard said, disgust evident in his voice. Victor's eyes hardened. I had no choice. The company was days away from collapse. Your family's life insurance policy was the only thing that could save us. So you killed my mother and stole 24 years from us, Rachel said, rubbing her wrist where his fingers had left marks. "I saved the company," Victor insisted. "Everything I did was for Ashford Enterprises. Without me, you'd have nothing, Leonard. I'd have had my family." Leonard's voice broke. "I'd have had my daughter." The officers moved forward, one of them producing handcuffs. "Victor Langley, you're under arrest for the murder of Clara Ashford. Kidnapping, fraud, and attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." As the officers led Victor away, he stopped at the doorway, turning back to look at Rachel one last time. "I gave you a good life," he said quietly. "Remember that?" Rachel held his gaze steadily. "You gave me someone else's life, but now I've found my real one." After Victor disappeared down the hallway, Leonard moved to Rachel's side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Together, they stood before the painting of a 5-year-old girl with a sunflower, the image that had reunited them against impossible odds. "It's over," Leonard whispered, his voice thick with emotion. But Rachel knew it wasn't over. It was just beginning. After 24 years of living as Rachel Monroe, she was finally home as Amelia Ashford. 6 months later, golden autumn light streamed through the newly restored east wing of Ashford Manor. The charred remnants of the past had been cleared away, replaced with warm colors and modern touches that honored the original design without dwelling in tragedy. Rachel, now legally Amelia Ashford again, stood in the doorway of her childhood bedroom, watching as workers hung new curtains. The pink walls of her youth had been replaced with a serene blue, the furniture elegant but comfortable, a new beginning in an old space. "What do you think?" Leonard asked, appearing beside her. The months had been kind to him. The haunted look had faded from his eyes, replaced by a quiet joy that deepened the creases around his smile. "It's perfect," Amelia replied. "Different, but right." They walked together through the renovated wing, their footsteps echoing on hardwood floors that had been installed to replace the ones destroyed in the fire. So much had changed in the past half year, not just the house, but their lives. Victor's trial had been swift, the evidence overwhelming, financial records, the fire marshal's testimony, Sister Margaret's identification, and Victor's own recorded confession had left his high-priced lawyers with little to work with. He was currently serving the first months of what would likely be a life sentence. The media frenzy had been intense at first. The miraculous reunion of billionaire Leonard Ashford with his long-lost daughter made headlines worldwide, but Leonard's legal team had managed to shield them from the worst of it. And gradually, the spotlight had moved on to other stories. "Mrs. Palmer asked if we're still planning to visit the cemetery today," Leonard said as they descended the main staircase. Amelia nodded. "Yes, the flowers have been ordered. Sunflowers, of course." Today marked the 25th anniversary of the fire. For 24 of those years, Leonard had visited Clara's grave alone. This year would be different. The restored sunroom awaited them, its glass ceiling allowing light to flood the space. Breakfast had been laid out on a small table, Mrs. Palmer's doing. No doubt, though Amelia had once been the manor's chef, she now occupied a different role. Still, she occasionally found herself in the kitchen, preparing family recipes that had somehow survived in her memory across the decades. "I've been thinking," Leonard said as they ate, "about the foundation." The Ashford Family Foundation had been Amelia's idea, a nonprofit dedicated to helping children separated from their families through tragedy, disaster, or crime. In the 4 months since its launch, they'd already reunited 6 families and provided support services to dozens more. "What about it?" Amelia asked, spreading jam on her toast. "I'd like to expand the scope, add a division specifically for investigating cold cases involving missing children." Leonard's expression grew thoughtful. "There are so many families out there still waiting for answers. For the miracle we experienced." Amelia reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "I think that's a wonderful idea. We could partner with Michael's firm for the investigative work." Michael Jensen had resigned from his private practice to become the foundation's head of security and investigations. His experience and connections had proven invaluable. After breakfast, they drove to Oak Hill Cemetery, where Clara Ashford's grave lay beneath a towering maple tree. The white marble headstone had been recently cleaned, standing in stark contrast to the colorful autumn leaves scattered across the ground. Leonard carried a bouquet of sunflowers, their bright yellow faces turned upward to catch the sun, so much like the flower in the painting that had reunited father and daughter. Together, They stood before Clara's grave, the silence between them comfortable. Filled with shared grief and gratitude, Leonard placed the flowers gently at the base of the headstone. "She would be so proud of you," he said quietly. "She always believed you were meant for extraordinary things." Amelia knelt, tracing her mother's name with her fingertips. More memories had returned over the months. Her mother's laugh, the way she'd read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, the smell of her perfume. "I wish I could have known her longer," Amelia whispered, "but I'm grateful for what I've recovered." They stayed for nearly an hour, Leonard sharing stories about Clara that filled in the gaps in Amelia's fragmented memories. How they'd met at a charity auction where Clara had outbid him for a painting she knew he wanted. How she'd challenged his business practices, pushing him to consider the human impact of his decisions. How she'd transformed Ashford Manor from a showplace to a home. As they prepared to leave, Amelia placed a small, handmade card beside the flowers. On it, she'd written simply, "I found my way home, Mom. Thank you for sending me with Sonny." Back at the manor, Mrs. Palmer greeted them with the news that the final renovations were complete. The East Wing, closed for 25 years, was fully restored. "Shall I arrange a small gathering to celebrate?" the housekeeper asked. "Perhaps next weekend." Leonard looked to Amelia, who nodded. "Nothing too elaborate," she said. "Just family and close friends." Mrs. Palmer smiled. The term family, no longer a source of pain in this household. "I'll see to it," she said, her usual efficiency softened by affection. That evening, Amelia found herself drawn to the music room. The grand piano that had stood untouched for years gleamed under fresh polish, its keys inviting. She sat on the bench, running her fingers lightly over the ivory. "Your mother played beautifully," Leonard said, appearing in the doorway. "She tried to teach you when you were small, but you were more interested in banging the keys than learning scales." Amelia laughed. "Some things never change. I still can't play a note. Perhaps it's time to learn." Leonard crossed the room and sat beside her on the bench. "I'm no Clara, but I remember a few basics." He placed his hands on the keys, fingers slightly stiff but confident, and began to play a simple melody. Amelia watched, entranced, as the tune stirred something deep within her memory. "Clara's lullaby," Leonard said softly. "She composed it for you when you were born." Tears pricked at Amelia's eyes. "I remember this." She played it every night before bed. Leonard guided her hands to the keys, showing her the basic pattern of the lullaby. Together they played the simple melody, their fingers moving in tandem. The notes filled the room, chasing away the last shadows of loss. When the song ended, Leonard reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I've been waiting for the right moment to give you this," he said, opening it to reveal an elegant silver locket. "It was your mother's," Amelia gasped as she took the necklace, opening the locket to find a tiny photograph of her parents holding her as an infant. "How did this survive the fire?" she asked, voice thick with emotion. Clara kept it in her jewelry box in the safe. It was one of the few personal items that survived. Leonard helped her fasten it around her neck. "It belongs with you now." The weight of the locket against her collarbone felt right, like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. She was Amelia Ashford, daughter of Leonard and Clara, survivor of tragedy, finder of truth. The past 24 years as Rachel Monroe were not erased, but incorporated into the tapestry of who she had become. Later, as twilight settled over the estate, father and daughter stood on the terrace overlooking the gardens where sunflowers still bloomed in defiance of the advancing autumn. "What happens now?" Amelia asked, the locket warm against her skin. Leonard smiled, the lines of grief around his eyes now softened by joy. "Now we live, Amelia. We honor your mother by living fully and helping others find what we found. A second chance," she whispered. "A second chance," he agreed, putting his arm around her shoulders. The manor behind them stood complete again, its east wing no longer a sealed monument to tragedy but a living space ready for new memories. Like the house, the Ashfords had been rebuilt, not erasing the scars of the past, but incorporating them into something stronger and more beautiful than before. From the ashes of what had been lost, something precious had been reborn. A family once torn apart by flame, now reunited by the painting of a little girl with a sunflower.